What's up, everybody? Chris Pennell here, and welcome back. Long time no see. We had our Easter break, but we are back going Super Speedway racing for the third time this year as we take on the Jack Links 500 at Talladega Super Speedway. And I will tell you right now, I am excited for this race because it's Talladega. You never know who will win this race or what's going to happen during it. But my only issue is that we're probably going to see fuel savings for the majority of this race. There is going to be times where the racing is pretty good, and obviously when we get towards the end of stage 3, that's when it's going to be go time, and that's when the real race starts. But honestly, 100 plus laps of this might just be a 3-4 wide parade, which will look cool on TV, but all they're doing is having a parade, saving fuel. But anyway, this happens to be your first time here. What's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. Videos on Saturdays, live streams on Sunday, usually around 1 p.m. Eastern, so come in, say hi, always a good time. If you do end up enjoying today's video, make sure you leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for brand new, and let's dive right into it. All right, let's talk some strategy here for Talladega, because it is a super speedway, but it does play a little bit different than the other ones. Obviously, Atlanta is its own beast with it being a 1.5 mile track. Diameter points, they do matter a little bit more over there, because you can kind of nail the lap leaders a bit easier. Daytona is just full-on chaos. There's going to be a big one. Half the field's going to wreck out. We know that. That's Daytona. You stack the back. Obviously, there's some other routes you can go with it, but for the main part, you're looking at drivers starting in the back. Talladega, it's a very similar process. It's mainly going to be drivers that offer us place differential, but Talladega can be a bit more hit or miss. You know, we're not always guaranteed a complete big one. The track is wider, so there's more room for these drivers to maneuver around a little bit compared to, say, Daytona. And I will always kind of inch more closer to the front of the field with some of these drivers that I think have the potential to win this race. Because if you're looking at the guys that typically win here at Dega, it's mainly the drivers that are really good at drafting tracks. Now, I know Tyler Reddick's on there, and we don't typically think of him as a great plate racer. He was kind of just in the right place at the right time at Dega, which is certainly possible. I'm not saying it's always going to be like, hey, Ryan Blaney's probably winning this race, or Chase Elliott probably going to win. Stuff like that can happen. I mean, Keselowski and Michael McDowell, they nuked the entire field, mostly Michael McDowell trying to block 12 lanes at once, and then it just opened the door for Tyler Reddick there at the end. But other than that, I mean, you're seeing a slew of Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Bubba Wallace, really good plate racers. Even Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is on the list. Joey Logano, several years ago, but he was definitely always a contender at Super Speedway. Still is. He just tends to wreck a lot more often, it seems like. So I definitely do favor kind of rostering the favorites a little bit more, depending on their starting position. So if this was Daytona, for example, and we had Ryan Blaney starting 12th or Chase Elliott starting 13th, well, I still might get some shares, of course, because they could certainly win. I think it's going to be easier for them to get there at Talladega than it would at Daytona, so I'd rather have more ownership here at Dega in that similar situation. And looking at our visual this week, this is if you're at the max, I believe a 20 race sample size of drafting tracks in the next gen era, so 2022 and on. That would be Atlanta, Daytona, and Talladega. And it should be no surprise who's at the very top right, which it seems like it's in the top right every single week at this point. But Ryan Blaney, he is pretty much our best driver at drafting tracks now. I think he's pretty much claimed his throne at that. But Austin Cindric, he has been really good as of late. I think him and Ryan Blaney are the two best right now. And when they are hooked up, they are very hard to beat. But Austin Cindric gets into a lot of issues at the end of the race. Not even his fault. He just ends up getting turned because there's idiots out there. And that is never going to change. And that's why at Super Speedways, you got to be careful betting. You got to be careful in DFS because you can be as good as you want to be for 99% of the race, but it does not matter on the last lap. And then you kind of have the cluster right below Ryan Blaney of Austin Cindric, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Joey Logano, and Kyle Busch. These are basically the contenders, and if all goes well for them and they don't wreck, you'll probably see one of them in victory lane. Not saying it can't be anybody else, but these should be the guys up front for the majority of the race. And then if we condense this to just Talladega races since 2022, it's a lot of the similar drivers, but we do see the Hendrick cars really up there at Dega. Chase Elliott, William Byron, and Kyle Larson, even though everyone thinks he sucks at super speedways, which finish-wise, yes, he really does, but when he's not wrecking out, I mean, he's running near the front of the field, so do not forget about him this weekend. Of course, Ryan Blaney's still up there, Austin Cindric, Kyle Busch, so basically all of these same guys, but the cluster kind of got mixed around a little bit. And as far as roster construction is concerned, we're not really caring about dominators this week. Like, sure, if you nail the guy that leads 40 laps and wins the race, that's great, but if you lead 40 laps and you get wrecked and finish 32nd, it means nothing because we don't get the fast laps this week because it's the drafting track, so they all get completely spread around. So you're losing the majority of the dominator points from that. Those are just gone to the wind. And then you just get the laps led, which can be pretty random at a track like this. They can interchange quite a bit. So they just don't really matter. So we're looking at potential finishing position or place differential And the name of the game mainly is going to be place differential. Now, I'm recording this before qualifying, so I don't know what the grid looks like exactly yet. But maybe we get some big names in the back. Maybe we don't. I always say if we do get big names in the back, it's very easy to be underweight on those guys because, say, Todd Gilliland's starting 33rd and Chase Elliott starting 32nd. Well, obviously, Chase Elliott's going to project better everywhere, as he should, because he's more likely to win the race than Todd Gilliland. If something happens to him and Gilly finishes 11th, which is 100% possible, that's massive leverage on the field. But either way, should be pretty interessante, but we'll see what happens. And finally, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown, I do one thing first. That's, of course, if you want to join the best NASCAR, and I guess now MLB, since that is in full swing, community out there, link is down in the description or the pinned comment for the Patreon. If you are a new user, you can get a free week trial completely risk-free, so there's absolutely no reason not to come and try it out and test drive all the tools that I have to offer. If you like my NASCAR stuff, probably like the MLB content as well. I won't talk about everything on here. I'll just let you guys screenshot or pause if you want to, but you will not find anywhere else that has all this kind of data or content available to you at the prices that I have to offer. Optimize it for FanDuel and DraftKings. It also goes for MLB and the contest simulator, which is only for NASCAR right now, but you can see which lineups or drivers stack up the best in tournaments, or which drivers and lineups offer the best ROI before the race starts. You can specify it to whatever specific contest you are in and send up to 5,000 lineups at once and export it directly to DraftKings to make your life easier. So if you're gonna come in, check it out. I'd love to have you. I think you like the content. If not, that's fine. Let's get back into it. All right, it's the next day. Qualifying just took place. Obviously, this being a super speedway, did not have any practice, and that would be relevant anyway. But we'll start with this 5-figure range first, and I think overall, the qualifying grid made this a pretty interesting slate. Obviously, the further back you start, the more chalky you're going to be, especially if you have a pretty decent name. Like, obviously, Chase Elliott down there starting in 30th, Larson in 25th, Chastain in 32nd. I think the cash lineup kind of speaks for itself this weekend. Let's start with these three 10K drivers. We have Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, and William Byron. Two Penske cars and a Hendrick guy. We know Ryan Blaney is pretty much the best super speedway driver in NASCAR at this point. Joey Logano has also had his fair share of really nice runs at super speedways. And William Byron won the Daytona 500, and he has several super speedway wins. If we look at their Talladega numbers, Ryan Blaney has a win, 3 top 5s, averaging the most laps led, the best driver rating. William Byron's pretty much right there with them. They have both been incredible. 20 race sample size super speedways. All these guys have been incredible. Ryan Blaney, probably the best at just grabbing really good finishes. The only issue is, I mean, they're just starting so far up. They're starting far enough back, I would say, Ryan Blaney and William Byron, where they're still in the player pool. I mean, Joey Logano, if you're playing Logano, he absolutely has to lead laps, and he has to win the race. All of that happening, both of those things happening, I would say, are an unlikely scenario. He tends to get caught up in wrecks, whether it be his fault or not. Starting in third, though, I just don't see how you play Joey outside of 150 max. Maybe you play a few percentages. Ryan Blaney, William Byron, if you're playing 20, 150 lineups, you are definitely getting to those guys because they can win this race. But if I'm playing a single entry, I can't play Ryan Blaney personally. Even 3 max is pushing it. William Byron gets a little bit easier because he starts outside the top 10. He's kind of in that nice GPP sweet spot. The only issue is I do think he'll probably end up being overowned because he's a race-winning potential driver, starting somewhat further back, and those guys tend to be higher owned, but I still think he will project well for this race. Dropping down to the 9K range, Denny Hamlin's kind of in a similar situation as William Byron, although I do think Byron's probably a bit better at the super speedways at this point of their careers, at least in the next gen car. Denny Hamlin has mentioned his struggles now with this new car at super speedways, has not been as good as he has been in the past, but and get 3 extra spots with Byron, but they're going to project pretty similar. Some really good plays, though, here. Keselowski, great super speedway racer, although another one, kind of like Joey Logano, where man, a lot of times he just ends up not finishing these races. And then Chase Elliott, he's going to be probably the highest projected play this weekend. He is excellent at Talladega. He's excellent at super speedways. If we look at his numbers here at Talladega, has the best average running position, does have a win, and the best driver rating. I said Ryan Blaney did, but forgot to scroll down a couple of spots. Chase Elliott does own the best average driver rating. If you guys were looking at the strategy portion, we saw Chase Elliott, once we looked at Talladega specifically, pretty much been the best, if not very, very close to it. And if you're looking at his overall super speedway numbers, they're very good. So if you are playing cash games this weekend and you're sorting this by salary, Chase Elliott's probably the first name you should click. Kyle Larson, he is someone that just tends to really struggle at these super speedways finish-wise, but he runs very well here at Talladega. Has one of the best average running positions of 12.3. That's not far off his teammate Chase Elliott and not far off his teammate William Byron. It's actually a little bit better than William Byron, but the finishes just tend not to be that great, although at Dega has 2 top 5s in 6 races. It's more so Daytona and Atlanta that really bring down his numbers. So if you wanted to play Kyle Larson in cash this weekend, I am not fully against it. We'll have to see who else pops up in the 30s, at least, because there's still downside starting in 25th. It's not extremely safe. But Larson's still probably going to be one of the better projection plays on the slate. I am not too concerned about the poor history at Super Speedways overall, because Talladega is honestly been pretty good for him. Christopher Bell finds himself in that weird spot. I would say he's right there with Denny Hamlin. Is a very similar play, but I do prefer the guys in the 20s and 30s in this price range. Dropping down to the 8K guys, Kyle Busch is a great plate racer now in the 8 car. Austin Cindric might be the best right now, but for where they are starting, makes them very difficult GPP plays. Well, just DFS plays in general. If you are playing them, they're 100% in GPP and they have to win the race. I would rather play Austin Cindric over Kyle Busch because you give me the 5 extra place differential spots, and I expect Cindric to contend probably about the same amount of times as Kyle Busch. If that's the case, just give me the extra PD, but very difficult place to get to. Tyler Reddick offers me a ton more place differential. He has one at Talladega as recent as last year. Was he in the right place at the right time? Sure, but that's how plate racing is these days. But starting in 26, you have a nice floor, similar to Kyle Larson. Briscoe, he's just kind of in a dead spot in 17th. And I have absolutely nothing to say besides if the optimizer gives me 10% of Briscoe, I'll play it. If he gives me 15%, I'll play it. Probably somewhere in that range. I think that's fair. But Wallace, I do prefer him more. He's a good plate racer. And if you're looking at his numbers at Talladega, well, the finishes can be a bit sporadic just due to wrecking out in some of the races. It does have one of the better average running positions, and Super Series in general tends to be pretty good. So starting in 20th, it puts him in that GPP range. By no means is he a cash play, but he's definitely in the player pool at least. Going down to the 7K range, we have 2 chalk monsters here in Ross Chastain and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. If you are playing cash games, I would highly recommend getting them into your lineups with Chase Elliott. Those are probably your 3 starting points: Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It feels like every single plate race, Ricky Stenhouse starts anywhere from 31st to 36, and he just ends up being a very solid play who ends up being around 25 to 35% owned. And hey, if he doesn't wreck out, he's probably going to finish well. He's really good at these super speedways. And if you're looking at Talladega specifically, 6 race sample size in next gen, averaging some of the most DraftKings points per race. And actually do think it is the most fantasy points per race, the most FanDuel points, average finish 16th, starting position of 18th as a win, 2 top 5s. So overall, pretty strong numbers. So yeah, you're playing those guys in cash games. Both of them have actually won at Talladega in recent memory. Alex Bowman's just similar to Chase Briscoe and Bubba Wallace. Michael McDowell, similar. Like, you just play what the optimizer gives you. You are not going out of your way to play them. Really, if you're going to, I guess it'd be Bubba Wallace, just because I prefer him the most at plate tracks. But if anyone's going to sit here and have a big analysis breakdown of why you should play these guys, you're just wasting your time, because it's just a matter of, hey, do they wreck or not? Well, if they don't, they'll probably be top 10 contenders, but there's just no way of knowing. Chris Buescher, just you can't really play him starting in 6th. Todd Gilliland, you can't really play in 15th. And then Ty Gibbs, you also really can't play. And there's just no upside. I mean, Todd Gilliland would be my preferred of these 3 because he has the place differential upside, but I do think the front row cars will be strong. I mean, Zane Smith obviously was in a absolute rocket ship, but just not a ton of upside there. Going down to the 6K range, Carson Hocevar starts 28th. He'll probably do his strategy of riding in the back and then grab his good finish. I don't know. Depends. Starting in 28th, he has an average running position of 29th. He has shown that in the past he tends to kind of just ride around the back. Although I believe at Atlanta he was kind of pushing the limit a little bit. So we'll see what happens. I know Talladega is definitely a lot more different than Atlanta, the driving styles, but overall, his history has shown that he'll just kind of ride around the back and grab a good finish. Like, he's playable. I don't love Hocevar starting 28th. I was starting further back, but he's definitely in the player pool. I mean, I like him a lot more than Austin Dillon or Josh Berry. I mean, Berry, he's basically a Penske car, and I'm sure he'll run well, but not much upside there. He's going to have to win the race. I would say the 2 chalk guys here for cash games. So we kind of already made our cash lineup of Chase Elliott, Chastain, and Ricky Stenhouse. I think once we get down to the 6K range, Justin Haley and Eric Jones are probably the next one. So that's 5 guys. And then I guess the last spot would be just for whatever you want. If you wanted to play Hocevar, you could do that. I don't really think there's anyone in the 5K range I would be rushing to play in cash games. Maybe you just throw in Kyle Larson, or maybe you throw in Tyler Reddick. I think that would be totally fine. But Jones, he's a good plate racer. Looking at his numbers at Talladega, 6 race sample size. He's been in the top 10 4 of the 6 races. That's actually really, really good. And Justin Haley also a very solid plate racer. 2 top 10s, 4 top 5s, always in the top 20, starting in 37th. Those are going to be your best plays in the 6K range. Daniel Suarez is fine, just kind of in that Carson Hocevar range, although 24 is kind of a dead spot. Priest is unplayable. Dinger and Ty Dillon will be tournament flyers. They are starting mid-pack, so I mean, is there a floor? Somewhat better than the other guys, but there's still a lot of downside if they happen to be caught up in something. But I mean, they're in the pool at least. They're gonna be better than Barry, Priest, and Austin Dillon at the very least. Then the 5K range, Zane Smith, you just can't play him starting in the pool. There is no upside here. I mean, even if he leads a good chunk of the race, I mean, he's going to have to win as well. And the likelihood of both of those scenarios happening are pretty low. So I will have 0 Zane Smith. Cole Custer starting at 12th. Another guy you just can't really play. Riley Herbst in 23rd. He's similar to Dinger and Ty Dillon, but I think I prefer the colleague cars a little more. And then you just got your junk, and if it ends up being a wreck fest, that's when these guys are playable. If it does not end up being a wreck fest, they're probably going to finish. They might not finish exactly where they start. Obviously, it's a super speedway. There's going to be some DNFs. I just don't know if it's going to be a massive big wreck where we lose half the field. And if that's the case, I don't think Peachy McLeod and JJ Yeley are going to be going fast enough to be caught up in that wreck. And they finish 23rd. Hey, that can work out. But for those kind of drivers to work out, Cody Ware, I mean, they need a big one most likely. So if you are doing different types of builds, maybe more of a calm race, you could stick to these drivers that have legit top 10 upside without wrecks, or you could do some full-on chaos builds where you're going SVG, McLeod, Cody Ware, JJ Yeley, 20 cars wreck out, and they end up paying off. They obviously have floors, but the ceiling just kind of depends on what the race ends up being like. With that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week, so I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for brand new. If you want to check out all the extra content, you know where to find it. Link will be found down below for the Patreon. I'll see y'all in the live stream tomorrow afternoon. I wish you all the best. I'll see y'all next time.